Hey, this is Mark, and this is episode 7 of the Why Are We Still Doing This podcast. Why are we still trusting the hospitality industry? And when I say the hospitality industry, I'm talking about hotels, restaurants, any type of food service. But I'm also going to throw in the automobile industry and the chance you take when you buy a used car, or pretty much used anything. Buying a used car, some people think, what did the previous owner do to this thing? It's like dating in your 40s and realizing how damaged pretty much everyone is, and thinking, what did the previous marriage do to this person? I think part of the Carfax documentation should include a picture of the person who owned the car before. For one price, you could get the picture, and for an additional fee, you could get a background check on that person who owned the car before. Because it would kind of give you an idea of what you're getting into and how many Burger King farts this guy ripped into the cloth seats of this pre-owned Toyota Corolla you're interested in. It would be great to have some sort of background check on the person to go along with the purchase. Because if I see something like the previous owner of the car has a charge for possession of illegal fireworks, I'm going to say that he seems like someone who put a lot of hard stops and starts on the car. Didn't wait for the car to fully stop when in reverse before shifting it back into drive, rode the brakes, etc. I say all this because I bought my first car in 15 years recently. Not brand new, but new to me. I bought a truck that was 2 years old with only 8,000 miles on it. And I couldn't pass it up for the miles and the price. And I think we all look for that kind of vehicle while car shopping. The car that's 10 years old with 4,000 miles on it, whose previous owner was someone's 93-year-old grandmother who drove it twice a week to church and once to the supermarket. I've owned 4 vehicles in my lifetime. 2 minivans, a midsize SUV, and now a midsize truck. And I've wanted a truck ever since high school. I was looking for a truck when I was 16 and thinking it would be great to cart around my drum set in. But then I found a used minivan and realized not only can I haul around drums, but I can also pass out in it after a night of underage carbohydrate consumption in the middle of a field. And on all of those vehicles I've owned, I've at least had one bumper sticker. I haven't got one for my truck yet, however, my guess is that if I were to put a Disney World sticker somewhere on the back of my truck, it would decrease the overall testosterone of the truck by about 73%. Towing capacity would drop significantly. Horsepower would fade away. It would just snowball. Never seen a Disney sticker on a truck. Truck stickers are usually in the realm of something like, "We the people are pissed off," or "My other ride is your mom." Maybe if I had a sticker of the Epcot logo on one side of the truck and a sticker that said, "My pronouns are pissed off American," on the other, it would even things out. Maybe. I saw a sticker on a truck that said, "So if guns kill people," and then had like a book report-sized explanation after that to finish their thought. It was really small print, and I wasn't even driving when I saw it. But if your whole point of having it was for someone to see it while driving, well, I'm sorry, but you failed. You're going to cause an accident with people trying to read this soliloquy on your vehicle. Incredibly small print for this proclamation you want the world to hear. You got to keep it simple, like "Baby on board," or "Yankees suck." The other day I was driving in heavy rain and the car in front of me had a bumper sticker that caught my eye. The sticker was a swastika with a big red line through it, kind of like the Ghostbusters logo. I'm like, all right, sure, you hate Nazis. The problem was driving through the rain, not being able to see things as clearly. The only thing I could see on the back of that car was the Nazi symbol standing out more than anything, and unable to see the red line through it. So at first glance, it looks like there's just a big old swastika on the back of this car. Here's an idea. We know the vast majority of people in this country don't like Nazis. So how about just not putting a Nazi symbol on your car, even if it has a red line through it? Because it just creates confusion. We know Nazis are bad. That is obvious. Incredibly obvious. Doesn't need explaining. It would be like if I had a sticker on my car that said, "Having fun is awesome. Vast majority of people like fun." Or, "I enjoy breathing oxygen." How about something that sets you apart from the rest, like a sticker with a picture of cauliflower with a red line through it? Everyone hates Nazis, but not everyone hates cauliflower. I hate cauliflower and would definitely put that sticker on my car. Like, "Look, that guy hates Nazis." Yeah, who doesn't? "Look, that guy hates cauliflower." Whoa, he's really taking a stance on that. I saw that infamous bumper sticker that says, "Unless you're a hemorrhoid, get off my ass." And I thought, doesn't that sound like the driver is welcoming hemorrhoids? Like, "Unless you're a hemorrhoid, get off my ass." That would be like me throwing a party and someone showing up to the door uninvited, and I said, "Unless you're on the guest list, get off my doorstep." And this bumper sticker is at least 40 years old, right? I can't be the first one to think this doesn't make sense. How about we, again, simplify with just stop tailgating? Because the attempt at being clever and funny kind of backfired. It's like when someone makes what they think is a really witty comeback in a social media post, but they do something like use the wrong your or their, and you just drop this atomic bomb of a rebuttal by simply writing the correct usage, which just sends that person into a complete frenzy. I went with a friend to look at a car once, and the dealer said to him, "You know, the previous owner of this car was a local, well-respected dentist." And part of me was like, so? Does the car run on fluoride? Do I get a free cleaning if I buy it? Part of me was like, who cares who owned it before? But the older I got, I realized it kind of does. I figured dentists gotta be fairly gentle in nature, especially when they're going at someone's mouth with all these sharp tools. I mean, they're gonna drive pretty conservatively, right? And I figured someone with a medical degree is less likely to flick boogers onto the floor. Like, what if the dealer told you, well, the previous owner of this vehicle was in a satanic cult and used the bed of the truck to haul away goat corpses after draining their blood for rituals? And some people would say, yeah, but did he ride the clutch? I never used to think about stuff like that, like who owned the car before I did. I think part of it was just realizing some people literally live in their car. It's like buying a second-hand couch. You realize more than just sitting happened on it. But then as I got older, I began to think of stuff like, I check into a hotel and think, who slept in this bed before me? Many of us never think about that kind of thing. However, there's a part of us who think that we're the first and only people to have ever slept in this hotel room. I never used to think about stuff like that, but then one day I went looking for a new pillow. And a friend of mine worked at a Bed Bath & Beyond. And I went to him and said, what do you suggest? And he said, well, we have all of our pillows over here, and over there we have a selection of slightly used pillows. And I said, used pillows? You sell used pillows? That's frickin' gross. And he says, let me ask you this. You sleep in hotels, right? And I said, Yeah. And it was like, holy crap. He's kind of right. I sleep on used pillows all the time. I started following this guy on TikTok who drives a tractor trailer truck around the country and checks into these ultra budget motel rooms with roaches, bed bugs, stains in the walls, and I thought, oh my God, I've most likely slept in the same hotel bed as someone like him. Right? Someone who smokes like a chimney, has a steady diet of 7-Eleven microwavable burritos and big gulps. That would be something that would probably make me never want to sleep in a hotel bed ever again. If I was presented with a "this is your life" montage of every person who has slept in the same hotel room bed as me. Like, here's Dave from Biloxi, Mississippi. He pumps septic systems for a living, and his diet consists mostly of the value menu from Wendy's. You both shared a bed one day apart at the Hilton Garden Inn in Tampa, Florida, where Dave had explosive diarrhea from a microwavable burrito he brought back from the hotel breakfast bar. Then the camera cuts to actual footage of him in the bed you both slept in, where he's just ripping away the most rancid farts, cackling away. I stay in hotels all the time, and I still have that excitement I did as a kid upon check-in. And to this day, as I'm closing the door as we're checking out, I still say, "Bye, hotel room," especially the nice ones. And the last 2 minutes of me checking out of a hotel room is like an intense game of hide and seek, in that I'm looking in every corner and crevice of the room on the off chance that I may have tucked some important personal item in the most random spot in this 350 square footage of space. I remember the summer after we graduated high school, a bunch of us went to the beach and stayed in this dumpy motel that hadn't been renovated since probably the early 70s. And this was in 1999. However, we had about 6 cases of beer in our luggage, which kept worries about bed bugs, mold, or loose hair in the sheets at bay. And this place had it all. Stained sheets, crunchy carpet, and that quintessential scent of mildew that, for some of us older millennials, is a comforting smell because it reminds us of being a middle-class family on a beach vacation in the 1980s. Some of my favorite memories of summer vacations as a kid are walking out of the hot July sun and taking that first step into the motel room, and it's a straight-up meat locker, right? It's like the 6th ice age in that motel room. The window unit in that room has been running non-stop since 1973, never been cleaned, completely inefficient, just pounding a giant hole in the ozone layer. But it's the coldest AC you've ever experienced on planet Earth. And you stand directly in front of it, lift up your shirt so it blows directly onto your chest, and let out a big right? Anytime I stay in a hotel, I am that dad that tries to get their money's worth. Even if it's one night, I'm taking like 6 showers with scorching hot water. Every toiletry is coming home with me. Soaps, lotions, even an unopened roll of toilet paper. The next morning at the continental breakfast, I look my kids dead in the eye and say, "You eat as much as you possibly can because it's free." And you know I'm taking a couple yogurts and a muffin for the road afterwards. I have enough hotel travel-size soaps and shampoos to the point I don't think I'll ever have to buy those items ever again. The highlight of this hotel, or I should say motel, we stayed in after graduating high school was the bathroom, which was so small you could sit on the toilet, put your feet in the shower, and wash your hands in the sink at the same time. I have not been to that establishment again, and most likely never will, but my guess is that nothing has changed except it is probably now considered a retro motel, given the fact they never remodeled and all the decor is considered, quote, in again. There was so much brown in motels years ago, and so much carpet. Carpet that was... I'm willing to put everything that I own on the fact it was never shampooed. I'm sure it was vacuumed on occasion, or more or less they used one of those things you'd see restaurants use to pick up straw wrappers and larger crumbs off the floor with. Like it's a cross between a vacuum and a dustpan. I think it's called a floor sweeper. Anyway, it's one of those things with any area of the hospitality industry. If we knew what actually went on behind the scenes, some of us would never leave the house and forever cook with our own food and sleep in our own bed. Like, I've come to the realization that I've definitely eaten food in a restaurant that fell on the floor of the kitchen. I've definitely slept in a hotel with bed bugs. I know I've been served a drink in a bar where the ice cubes probably had the same level of bacteria as some of the crusty carpets from motels I stayed in as a kid. There is a bar in the next town over from me that years ago had one of those rotating cloth hand towel things. And from what I've gathered on the internet, there is some debate on the mechanics of it. Most people saying there was a separate chamber that the dirty section of the towel went into, and a new clean section appeared. And some people saying it only got gross if it wasn't changed out, which my guess is that it never got changed out. Anytime I would go to this bar in my early 20s, I always walked out of the bathroom with my hands soaking wet because the towel looked like it had been through multiple presidential administrations. I thought it just rotated, and by the time it got around to the next guy, the towel would be dry, right? And this was 40 plus years ago, right? So we were not yet to the point of everyone carrying hand sanitizer wherever we went, and we laughed in the face of a norovirus. I also wondered, maybe there's some magical cleaning elf inside the machine, and it makes him really happy to clean the towel. I don't know. Going back to hotels, I'm hoping someone can explain to me where bed bugs originated from, because I'm still trying to figure this thing out. I'm guessing these bugs have been around for thousands of years, right? What were they doing before mattresses came along? Were they just walking the streets at night? Practically homeless? Everything I read about bed bugs and how they make their way into hotel beds is essentially they, quote, hitch a ride through luggage, clothing, or other items. But they never talk about where they originate from. Are they hanging out in the woods? Are they on the corner playing dice? Like, where do they come from? And for such a stealth, literal blood-sucking insect, they sure do have a really soft name, though. Like you've got army ant, Titan beetle, cockroach, giant hornet, then bedbug. Sounds like a plushie that's made by Mattel that your kids would cuddle in the 80s. It's like ear, nose, and throat doctor. Some people are neurologists. Some people are proctologists. Some people are cardiologists. Then there's ear, nose, and throat doctor. Like none of those three things are that significant on their own, so they combine them into one specialty. Yes, I know they're all connected, but to introduce yourself without the suffix ologist and say, I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor, just isn't as profound. Probably the weirdest thing I found in a hotel room is a bottle of breast milk left in the fridge. Luckily, I was already a dad at the time and immediately knew what this white substance in a bag was before my son got to it and was like, "Look, Dad, free milk for the cookies." Pro tip, whenever you check into a hotel, if there is one in the room, be sure to check the alarm clock for any previously set alarms that someone may have left for you. My wife and I were on a lovely overnight, just the two of us, and fell asleep sometime after midnight. Around 2:15 in the morning, the thunderous sound of the alarm went off and sent both of us into a complete frenzy. Not just the radio alarm, but the loud, intermittent beeping that is ubiquitous with alarm clocks. The sound literally sprang my body out of bed like a Wile E. Coyote trap used to catch the roadrunner. It was completely dark in the room. We had just fallen asleep no more than an hour and a half ago, and the only thing I could see were the red numbers displayed on the clock. And I finally was able to turn on the light so I could see where to turn off the alarm on the clock, and at that point my heart was pounding out of my chest. I had no idea where I was for a minute. That's a true sign of getting old. Going on vacation, waking up in the middle of the night, and not knowing where you are. And that could mean one of two things. One, your mind is slipping away. Or two, somewhere along the line, you got to the point where you just like to sleep in your own bed and went many years before going on a vacation again. And this is your first time out of the house in forever. I remember taking my grandmother on vacation many years ago and her waking up in the middle of the night, calling out for my grandfather, who wasn't there with us at the time. So yeah, I don't know if someone reset the alarm in that clock by accident or if it was just someone who wanted to prank the incoming guests to that room, but maybe it was just karma for all the pranks I pulled on my college roommate with his alarm clock. Which, if you want to know what I'm talking about, please take a listen to the very first episode of this podcast. One of my pet peeves when booking a hotel is when you're setting up how many people are in the room, how many adults, and how many children, and they ask you the ages of the children in your party. I don't know what it is about that, but it's as equally annoying when you're trying to order something online from the comfort of your couch. You've got a blanket over your legs, a cat asleep on your lap, payment information already saved in the system, and as you're checking out your purchase, you're asked to enter the 3-digit security code on the back of the card, which is in your wallet on the other side of the house. Now you've got to disrupt this entire system you've got going with the cat, the blanket, all of it. Major first world problem right there. I've never had a major horror story from staying in a hotel or motel, but I have had my share of ants, dysfunctional heating and cooling systems, loud neighbors, burn marks on the curtains, and one fire alarm that thankfully went off in the morning when we were already awake. In high school, we traveled to Washington, D.C. as part of the Honor Society and treated a DoubleTree by Hilton as if we were Motley Crue on tour in the mid-'80s. Some of us brought hard liquor in our suitcases on a school trip. I don't know if this generation is that ballsy. We had one of our friends use a fake ID to repeatedly buy beer from a package store around the corner. We had a bathtub full of drinks on ice, probably 20 people at least in one room, racing each other down the hallway in the middle of the night. And I'll never forget one of the nights we were there. We were pretty loud, and our group leader, who was also one of our English teachers, came pounding on the door due to a noise complaint. That is a panic I think most of us have experienced, engaging in some sort of illegal or immoral activity and hearing an adult in charge knock on the door. That is an adrenaline rush most of us never have again after age 21. As soon as we heard the knocking, we did our best to hide the evidence of any wrongdoing, and I went to look through the peephole to confirm it was someone of importance. And the image of my freshman English teacher standing at our door in a white undershirt and his trousers unbuttoned, pounding on the door, is forever burned into my memory. My head rattled against the door as he pounded away with his fist, my eyes still looking through the peephole. And I opened the door, and he walked into a room of roughly 20, 17, and 18-year-old high school students, silent, eyes locked in on our teacher, and the cruel fate that awaited us. But part of me was like, what is he going to do? Call our parents to come pick us up? I don't remember what he said, but I remember he looked around at all of us, said his piece, and walked back out. I do know that after he left, there was a very noticeable and poorly hidden handle of Captain Morgan on the desk roughly 3 feet from him. He definitely knew what was going on. He knew what was going on long before he even knocked on the door. I'm just glad he didn't have to use the bathroom and see we used the bathtub as a giant cooler that evening. Man, what a time to be alive. Working in food service, you're bound to encounter that one person that wants to order something that is nowhere on the menu. I worked in a coffee shop during summers off from college at our local mall, and we had coffee, lattes, frozen drinks, baked goods, and pastries. And one day a woman came in and asked, "Yeah, can I get a double almond fudge ripple?" And I turned around to look at the giant menu behind me, knowing full well we didn't have anything remotely close to what she was asking, but wondering if my manager added an item that sounded like it came from Friendly's to the menu overnight. And I said, what? And she then said, yeah, like a double almond fudge ripple. We had coffee, we had lattes, we had frozen drinks, we had baked goods and pastries, but we had nothing she was asking for. I didn't have a single almond, let alone a double, and even if I had the ingredients, I wasn't sure if I had the proper equipment to, quote, ripple this bizarre beverage/food item that she requested. I didn't even know if she was using ripple as a noun or a verb here, or if she wanted me to ripple the almond and fudge, like as a substitution for blending or something. I told her we didn't have anything like that, but using my context clues and how she described this mystery drink, the closest I think I could make would be a frozen cappuccino. And luckily she went along with it and enjoyed it. And luckily for me, this was 2002, and, quote, Karens weren't really a thing yet. I mean, they were, but they weren't called Karens. But I can imagine this happens a lot in the restaurant world. People asking for stuff that's clearly not on the menu, then threatening to speak to the manager about it. I mentioned before about a This Is Your Life montage where you'd see every person who's ever shared the same hotel or motel room as you. And I always thought, wouldn't it be interesting if you could have every one of your Facebook friends in the same room as you at one time? And could you remember all their names? And my response to that would be, hell no. My son has this unique superpower of calling me out in social situation when names are mentioned. And what I mean is, if I see someone I know, but I can't remember what their name is, we'll do the generic, "How you doing? Good, you?" and kind of wander away from each other. What my son will do is, while we are still in earshot of this mystery acquaintance, he'll say in a loud, clear voice, "Dad, who is that?" And if I pretend I don't hear him, he'll say it even louder, "Dad, who is that?" And that's when I have to pull him aside and sternly whisper in his ear, "Dad doesn't know who that is." I sometimes think about a This Is Your Life montage of people you've given rides to. This is your life of college acquaintances. This is your life of coworkers. I know across the board in all those facets of life, there would be a lot of, "Who the hell is that?" Maybe one day we'll have the AI type of technology where you could say, "Hey Siri, show me the worst people I've ever had to work with." And sure enough, on the screen you'll see Bev, who trained you at your first job at Macy's. Just a general grouchy old lady. Then you'll see Troy, the kid who was consistently 15 minutes late every shift, and you could never leave on time because of it. The whole thing would look like a game of Guess Who, just faces of shitty people you worked with in the past. And you could have the technology run through all kinds of different parts of your life, like, "Hey Siri, show me the people who lived on my floor freshman year of college." And boom, there they are. A nice little trip down memory lane. And speaking of memory lane, I'm certain that at some point we will have the technology to erase certain memory lanes in our life. A horrible tragedy, traumatic events witnessed, grandparents accidentally seen naked, could all be permanently deleted from our minds. I'm sure there's been a movie with this exact plot, and if there hasn't, there should be. Imagine being to keep all the life lessons learned, but to erase the life events that were attached to those lessons. Would we want that? How would we be able to know certain right from wrongs without having an origin? There's a lot in my life I wish I didn't know. I wish I didn't see. I wish didn't happen. But the experiences have all got me to this point in my life where I've got a lot of great things going for me. Around 15 years ago, in the midst of a therapy session with my therapist at the time, he looked at me and said, "I think you need to deprogram yourself." Now, on the surface, that sounds like a shitty thing to say to someone, telling you stuff from the depths of their soul. But knowing who I was and what my core beliefs were at the time, he was right. And there are many days where I find that statement true, as I still have not done a factory reset on my internal hard drive. However, I have had many system updates and add-ons that have significantly upgraded overall performance to where, at my core, my operating system is still dated, but IT has really done a great job at upgrades. However, that's a scary thing to think about, deprogramming yourself. Because what if I did? And the big question I always had was, would I still be funny? Would I still be funny if my core beliefs were not at my core anymore? And I think partially no. Because in humor, there is pain. And I think finding the humor in the pain doesn't come right away. But years later, after many good things happen, you're able to laugh at it because it takes up such a small percentage of the pie chart that is your life. I've always been drawn to stand-up comedy that deals in dysfunctionality within the family system, growing up in a household that was unpredictable. My sister and I talk and repeatedly bring up stuff like, remember the time Mom threw the cake against the wall? Which I remember so vividly. I remember walking into the house with my dad, my mom with her back to us, making a cake on the kitchen counter. And all it took was for my dad to land one condescending / sarcastic comment on my mom, for her to launch a cake, which was probably 80 to 85% finished, in one swift motion into the corner of the kitchen counter. And in that moment, there's lots of pain. There's pain on my mom's end at being incredibly pissed off with my father. Pain on my end for having to witness incredible, dysfunctional, and unhealthy communication. But all these years later, that situation brings laughter. Because that was just one not so good thing in a sea of many good things that have happened since then. And we're able to realize that it was unhealthy and not the best response, and we've learned from it. And that is the kind of humor I'm always going to be drawn to because it's real. There's no made-up story. It's simply the truth. There's an old saying about songwriting and how to make a successful song, and how, quote, all you need are 3 chords and the truth. And it's the same with comedy. If it's true, if it's real, people are going to relate. People will find it funny. Anyway, thanks for listening. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about how my brain and comedic brains in general work. Episode 8 is going to be part 2 of the Why Are We Still Longing for Retro Gaming series with my friend Jesse Littlejohn. And we'll be talking about being a teenager in the early 90s and share stories about our experiences with home video game consoles and everything in between. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.